Thank you all for coming to our second annual New York City Media Panel, and we're very excited to have our panelists back again. I want to introduce them to you and then have them tell you a little bit about what it is that they do for the companies that they work for. And also, I really do encourage you to feel comfortable to ask questions if you have something that you want to ask in the middle of a discussion. That is the exact kind of thing I want this panel to be. I want you to be able to jump in and go, hey, wait a minute, I don't understand that concept. These folks have a lot of knowledge in the industry. And they are loyal mountaineers, and they want to spend some time talking to you and answering your questions and explaining how they made it to the top in New York and how you can do the same. So I will introduce our panelists, starting directly to my right. Dave Roeder is the only panelist who was not a journalism school student, but we love him anyway. He was in the B&E school, marketing school. Class of '95, worked for ESPN in digital sales. Currently senior director of global video, correct? And agencies for Twitter. Next to Dave is Christy Kozlowski, journalism grad, EVP and marketing director at Cara USA, where she has been since working as a media planning supervisor with Goodby Silverstein and Partners. And congratulations to her, was listed in Ad Age as one of their 40 under 40 this year. Big ups for Christy. Yeah. Next to Christy is Sean Robertson, 1999 journalism graduate, general manager of digital sales at Dish. He's also worked at BET, Alloy Media, and SiriusXM. And next to Sean is Jacob Lewis, advertising class of '99, director of sales for Freeform TV, formerly the ABC Family Channel. You guys have probably seen some shows on that. And next to him is his lovely wife, Cara Lewis, advertising class of '99, SVP and U.S. head of investments for General Motors for Cara USA, also worked at MPG and Initiative. So these folks have had a lot of experience in the advertising and marketing and strategic communications industries, but you can see they come from diverse backgrounds. We have equal parts folks that majored in advertising and journalism, as well as Dave, who was in the marketing department while they were here for undergrad. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to ask if you can, we've listed off your titles, but we'll start with Dave and work our way down. Explain what your role is with your company and how you arrived at that position.
Hello, what's up, guys? Was the school here in 95 or 91, 95? Maybe that's why I didn't go. Let's make an excuse for why I wasn't.
I was in that school actually at that point, so yeah, I graduated in '95.
I knew that. We did that last year too. It's so good to be here. I've been at Twitter now for just almost 5 years. I run a couple of teams. One team that looks after the global agency relationships, so I get to partner with fine folks like Christy and Cara, and I run a team that helps build out Twitter's video advertising products. So we go out and work with all the big advertisers that hopefully you buy a lot of their products, and we help them advertise with video on Twitter. So that's me, that's what I do, and I'm sure we'll talk more throughout.
Christy?
Hello. So I've been with Cara for just over 10 years now, which seems kind of crazy. I'm a managing director there, so it's the agency side of the business from media planning and buying. And I oversee various different accounts of ours, client business like Procter & Gamble and Diageo Spirits and Liquors and the J.M. Smucker Company. And essentially, I'm sort of responsible and accountable, if you will, for that client relationship that we have for all of our services that we offer, from planning and buying to strategy and data and analytics. So I guess the buck stops with me a little bit. I do have to be accountable for that scope of work and the contract that we have with the clients. But also making sure that all of the services that we're offering across all of our different capabilities is really allowing our clients to go out and position themselves with the highest competitive advantage in the market against their competitors. But I grew up in the planning side of the world of the advertising business.
Sean?
Good evening, Sean Robertson. So I'm actually in a new role. This is my fourth position at Dish in 6 years. So I actually head up programmatic and addressable advertising now. So a little bit about what that is. It's what would be the innovation side of media sales. So when I started in the business about 18 years ago, I would go to an advertising agency like Cara and negotiate and submit a plan, and we'd go to a fax machine, and it's a very friction-full process, and I'm sure Jay can attest to that, right? We were grabbing our bags and going to advertising agencies. So what we're doing in the process now is creating a frictionless process whereby we can create a system, a network that allows advertising agencies to bid on or transact over a network or a platform that we own or they own or a third party owns. And separate and apart from that, there's a team that within our four walls at Dish works on targeted advertising. I'm sure Kara can talk a bit about that because that's one of the ways by which our two companies transact.
Hey guys, that's just great to be here again this year. Any freshmen? Right on, welcome.
Awesome.
Seniors? All right, congrats. Something in everybody in between? Awesome. So I run about half of the national sales team for Freeform in New York. I've been with the Disney company. We're owned by Disney for close to a little over 15 years. And so if you turn the TV on to Freeform and you see any of the ads on there, then somehow, some way that usually kind of goes through my department. I run the account executives who are responsible for going out to the agencies, to these guys, and scooping up as many dollars as they can, and then bringing those back to the house, and we work on putting together a media plan for General Motors or Smuckers or anything that you would see on there.
And Kara?
Hi. I actually work on the investment side of the business. So I started in national video, which is basically television commercials. And now I work and head up all U.S. investments for General Motors. So I'm in charge of print, digital, out of home, national video, search, social. Basically any dollar that GM spends in media, I oversee.
So that's as structured as I want to make it in terms of going in order here. Feel free to jump in on this, anyone. Well, actually, I will start it with Kara, since you were you really are the person who has helped me spearhead this event 2 years running now. What I envision this event to be is a chance for it to kind of demystify the industry, because it is extremely confusing. Even though these are students that some of them are seniors, a lot of them are just sort of figuring out that there's more to it than just saying, hey, I work in advertising. When you were in this age range, did you understand or know the kind of work you would be doing today?
No. I actually did not really know that my side of the business even existed. Like, I mean, obviously I watch TV and I read a magazine and I would see ads, but I had no idea really how they got there. And when I graduated from West Virginia, I actually started as a planner, and I worked as a planner for about 2 weeks, and I was like, I don't really like this side. I really want to move over to the other side. And I had a friend on the other side who actually worked with Dave. And she brought me over to the Media Edge, which was basically the first agency that I started at. And I started in national video. And I really had no idea that, you know, buying television commercials, like how it was done, who did it, and all of that. So that whole side of the business was, you know, obviously new to me. And then I think really just being in the business 18 years and to go on that, I'm still learning stuff about the business. Like we're making it, I think, a little bit more right now, even more abstract. I mean, there's just so many different people and departments that have to factor into the buy-in, into the plan, and into everything that we do. And as you get higher, then you just like learn all of the other things about the business. So I feel like I'm just constantly learning that there's other sides of the business that even when I started 18 years ago, I didn't know about.
And the same question to all of you. I mean, when I was a student here, I was focused on being a broadcast journalist. I knew that's what I wanted to do, and wow, what an exciting ride it was. It's exactly what I did. Wait, was that how it was for you guys? I mean, did anyone else have kind of a focus on this, or do you have to be flexible and kind of see where the industry takes you?
I had a plan. My plan was to work at ESPN, and I genuinely mean that. I knew before I got here, before I got to West Virginia, I knew I wanted to work at ESPN. I was just obsessed with ESPN. I wasn't going to go on SportsCenter. I knew that, and I tried really hard when I was here to get into the sports management group in school, and it would have taken me 2 more years to get out of here, so I didn't. And when I got to New York, I realized that ESPN was a tough place to get into, but I started looking at companies that looked like ESPN, and that got me into Viacom, which at the time was MTV and VH1. And from there, I started to learn about the business, and I started to just plot out this path. Viacom took me to that agency, which was the Media Edge, and I spent way more time there than I ever thought I would. I thought I was going to be in there for maybe a year or two, which was going to be my path to ESPN, and I stayed for almost 9 years. But I did get to ESPN. It did. That mission to get to ESPN stayed with me forever. And again, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do there. I knew I was going down a marketing path. I knew I loved sports, and I had that passion for sports. And I knew that ESPN was just a brand that I was obsessed with. So I stayed focused on that, and I stayed at ESPN for just about 9 years as well. So it's it's a little bit of a roundabout way, but it got me at least off to something.
Anyone else? Were you driven by a specific goal, or just sort of a general? You knew what you were educated to do. Did you have a plan?
Well, I was a broadcast news major as well, so clearly very different than perhaps what I thought my plan was going to be. But I did take classes while here, so I knew a little bit about the sort of planning agency side of the business, but I had a family friend actually that had worked in media. And so when I graduated, I sort of made a little bit of a pivot, but I would say it's actually helped where I landed and where I am in my career now. Things about broadcast news that I loved, that I think I was good at, actually have helped me quite a bit in my role today. As you think about the way in which you present yourself, and the way in which you talk to clients, and the way in which you are selling through to a degree, but making sure that you're building confidence in you of what you're saying. So I think that just given the nature of being in front of people all the time and talking with people, whether it be all of us together in a room or with your clients in a room and being put in those situations, I definitely draw upon those experiences from being in front of a camera and writing stories and being able to say something and get to a point in 30 seconds, which is extremely important. So I would, though, also say is once I started off in the field of media planning, I think once I learned it a little bit more, where I ended up, I think is where I knew I would eventually end up, a little bit different than Kara, where I think she started one place and kind of pivoted over. So, I think you have to be open to the fact that you might take some turns throughout your careers because you might find something more interesting or that you want to try.
But those skills are definitely transferable. Sean, similar for you. You were a journalism major, right? You worked at the DA. You did the news route for a bit.
No, so I was actually I think I was one of the few people that majored in advertising.
Okay.
So majored in advertising, was a minority in that regard here, and but started in the DA doing creative work. So I was doing ad design, which is a great job to have if you're in school here. And after doing that for a year, somebody suggested I moved into sales, which was commission-based, so that was very attractive to me. And I did that for 3 years, and I pitched the GM job my junior year, so being the general manager, overseeing the sales department, so students, managing students. I thought that was really a cool opportunity, and I didn't get the job. But the dean at the time of the journalism school was in the pitch and said, listen, you're great at this. You should go to New York and you can have an awesome career doing this in television or newspaper or radio. So that expanded my mind and expanded my research. And it was through networking with one of my friends here who actually was in the School of Education at WVU. Her brother was doing what we do at CNN at the time. So that was my pathway. And instead of going down to Myrtle Beach my senior year, I went up to New York, interviewed, got a job. So by April of that year, I knew I was going to be working at Turner Broadcasting when I graduated. So that was an awesome feeling. So again, and I've said it to every group of students I've talked to since 2000 when I've come back, is your network is going to be very important. Who you meet and who you work with in this room, extremely important. But make your way over to engineering. Make your way over to the School of Business and Economics, which I minored in when I was here. Make your way over to the School of Education, because you don't know where your resources are going to come from. And it's not just going to be your own power that's going to project you or traject you to where you want to be.
Jake?
Blew off Myrtle Beach for the summer. Wow, I could have never done that. I was a advertising major as well, and I really had no idea what that meant at the time, but this was close to 20 years ago, and it was, as I sit here and I think back on that, the industry back then was a much simpler place. You know, probably a tenth of the networks. There was no social media, I don't think, back then, was there? So, no, I don't even think the flip phone hadn't even been invented. Yeah, we had to go to the computer lab in order to use the computer. But I think my point is that there's so much more opportunity now and so many more avenues around the industry that you don't know you'll never know exactly, you know, where you're going to land while you're here. I think once you get out into the real world, that's really when you figure out, you know, what's going to be right for you based on the knowledge that you get here, but you know, getting out there and seeing all the different places that media and advertising touches, like Carol was saying a little bit earlier. It's such a huge space now, and there's so much different opportunity that something you think you're into now could be completely different, you know, a year, 2 years, 5 years from now. And so I would just encourage everybody to keep an open mind about that. It's great to have a path and goals, and Sean, I think, is one of the most goal-oriented guys I've ever met. But it's good to keep that open mind and be flexible and all that.
Anyone have questions? I have more questions, but anybody have a question you'd like to ask at this point? Yes. Hang on, I'll bring you the microphone.
Okay. Hello, my name's Nicole. So I'm going to graduate this December, and what my question is right now is, I know you guys talked about how there's so many different job titles in this field. I honestly don't even know like what keywords to search or what job titles to search. Do I just apply to like everything that has anything that I'm interested in, or I don't know what to do. Please give me some guidance.
I deal a lot right now. Second half of my job is doing the HR within our department, within National Video. And I would say search agency names, like look up agency names, search advertising agencies, maybe networks, like vendors, like kind of search those sorts of names and don't get it down to the job title. Because then when you get your resume into that agency, or you get your resume into that, you know, sales organization or a tech organization or whatever you get into, they'll help you with your path of what the title is. It's less about the title and more about like what the places are that you're looking for. Like, do you want to go to the agency side? Do you want to go to the sales side? There's all these tech companies now that are tech, you know, techies, and then there's the sale techies, you know, so there's a lot of different, obviously, avenues, but those HR folks, that's their job to help you get your path when you get to the company. But I would search for the company.
Yeah, I think great example, right? The passion for ESPN that led to that company. Think about what media you use, what products you use, what you're passionate about, and that's going to propel you a lot further than being very specific or very honed in one specific job title.
Okay.
I would just add, like, the fact that you're here, like, that's amazing. And now you've got 5 people up here that are incredibly connected. Like, come to us. Like, don't go and start submitting resumes. Call one of us and talk about companies that you're passionate about. And wouldn't it be great if I could talk to people at Snap or Twitter or Facebook or any one of these anywhere? I mean, that's, to me, like, just don't forget that. Don't walk out of here and forget that you just like met the 5 of us and you're connected now to some pretty good people.
Yeah, use your network for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say, when you think about the agency world, so Kara and I are representing Kara, a media planning and buying agency. But our agency, like most agencies, are part of a much larger holding network that are filled with multiple different agencies of areas of expertise, whether it be public relations or, you know, data and analytics or performance media, branded entertainment, et cetera. And so oftentimes, just within our network alone, we're constantly, you know, working with our teams to grow their talent and their interest by allowing for, you know, internal rotations and promotions within the organization itself. So while we may just be representing one part of our larger group, most agencies also have that breadth, if you will. So as Kara said, just getting into HR and having that conversation, they can easily kind of put you in contact with different folks, even if it's not at that direct agency in the holding company.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Anyone else have a question they want to ask while we're taking questions from the audience? Oh, yes. Hold on, Emily, I'm coming.
Hi, my name's Emily. I was just kind of going off of that question. There's so many job titles out there, and is there any one that you kind of see becoming like more of a need, or one that you see popping up that's kind of new in the industry that we should be aware of if we're like, I'm not graduating soon, but in the future?
So on the sales side, certainly anything that says addressable or programmatic, those are like magic dust words that you can throw around. And a lot of people talk about what they do programmatically or what they do addressably, and there are going to be 15 different definitions. So even within the industry, people are making up what that means or how they actually transact in that way. But those are key words that we know are expanding both in scope and the types of roles that are existing in the industry.
I would say automation too. Look that up. Goes along with that, but automation is a big factor that all clients are looking for right now.
And another that's actually been in the news because there was a major data breach just yesterday was announced is data. So a lot of my vendors, people who I'm their client, are experiencing Equifax, Polk, dunnhumby, even Kroger is a major data vendor in the country. So start looking at data companies that are growing their media presence massively. And so what that means is each one of us has a digital footprint, where you shop, where you use your credit card, where your mobile phone goes with you. So if you've gone into a Domino's and Domino's knows that they want to reach you with an ad, they'll send you a coupon, right? But in order to do that, they're creating this footprint from various data sources, and that's being done by companies that I just mentioned.
I think we probably all can say that we're having conversations, especially around data, that I never thought I'd have before. I'm learning every single day as we go. I mean, the landscape changes. If you look at just titles or job opportunities 5 years ago versus today, about hiring data scientists, for example, and where we're actually pulling resource from or talent from, I should say, is very different. The types of companies that we even recruit from, and so you'd be surprised. You can't necessarily predict everything, but I'm in conversations around data and PII management and other types of operations that I just never thought in a planning world I'd ever really have to be a part of. But you open with open arms. We all learn, and that excites us. I'm sure.
And we all do that. The acronyms, if you don't know what that is, just raise your hand.
Sorry.
PII is personally identifiable information.
There's way too many, and I sit in rooms and I'm like, stop. Because I don't know half of them. We had a guy who only talked in acronyms.
Patrick, did you have a question?
I do. Hello, my name is Patrick. So my question for you guys is, some of you guys talked about going to New York after graduation. Did you have a plan, or did you just go and hope to find a job? Or I guess how did that work after graduation? I don't graduate for a long time either, but I'm just kind of curious.
I think we got that same question last year, and my answer was I lost a bet to this one, obviously. But yeah, no real plan. The plan was to get a job and make some money and get out there and start doing it. And that's kind of what I alluded to earlier was, there's some major markets in the country. New York is obviously the biggest one, but there's so much opportunity up there now with all these different avenues. Obviously, it's good to have a plan to get up there and get your foot in the door. But like I said, be flexible. Being flexible is going to help you in your success.
And I think just like one other thing on that is we all work at companies that are based out of or in New York, but that doesn't mean we have an office in LA, we have an office in San Fran, Chicago, so we have offices all over. So if you were in contact with us and you didn't necessarily want to move to New York and you wanted to move to San Fran, maybe we have an office there that we can connect you with. So there is also that connection that you can use.
Yeah, I had to go to New York. That's where I'm from. And my mom would have probably killed me. But it was motivating because the thought of going back and living at my parents' house for too long was not a good thought. So it was motivating to go back and get that job right away. But I was going to say the same thing. The beauty of this space, and this has really changed over the years, is that it's not New York. It's Chicago, it's Detroit, it's Atlanta, it's Austin, Texas, it's Seattle now. It's wherever Amazon decides to put their next headquarters, which could be anywhere in North America, and you know, be represented. Maybe it's for all of us to go work there, but it's expanded so far beyond just New York now. New York is amazing, and I'll sell it hard all day long, but it goes much deeper than New York.
The other thing is, you know, I'm from New York as well, so that was a no-brainer for me. But a lot of these companies are global. I spent time in Spain and South Africa this year, and I went to ad agencies there. So think beyond that scope. A lot of people didn't introduce that to me, but if you want to work in media in Toronto, massive presence there. So don't just think about New York and, man, if I don't make it in New York, then I can't do this. To the point, there are opportunities wherever you want to really think about the medium that you want to work in. Do you want to work in magazine? Do you want to work in radio? What is your passion there? Where you're going to be excited? The other part is, you know, you could have a great job, but if the city you live in sucks for your lifestyle, you're not going to have a great time, right? If you don't like to ski, don't go to Denver, right? So think about your lifestyle and what you enjoy doing, and try and get everything else to fit around that.
I actually worked in Philadelphia for 5 years as well. So when I graduated, I started in New York, and I'm from New Jersey. But I always wanted to. I loved Philadelphia growing up. But when I decided to go, I knew I didn't want to work for a local agency. I knew I wanted to still work with a national agency and holding company. So I waited for the right opportunity. And at the time, Omnicom, Goodby Silverstein Partners, had won part of the General Motors business, and they were opening an office in Philly to service the regional and corporate stuff. So it ended up working out perfectly, and I worked there for five or so years before coming back to New York. So again, there is that opportunity across the country if you find that right company that you want to sort of partner with.
Yeah, I'll go back to the question about titles, because this may not be applicable right out of school, but I think at some point you'll remember this, and it's the best advice I ever got in my career. It was early on, and I had a boss tell me when I got to ESPN, don't try to chase what everybody else is chasing. Like, everybody's gonna wanna go and spend time in mobile because phones were just becoming the hot thing, and everybody knew that they had to go work in mobile. But look for the things that, they're just so small and they're not enormous yet, but they're gonna be big. And at the time, for me, it was social. Social was, Facebook had just launched and nobody cared. Everybody thought it was just dumb. And I remembered that, and I said, I'll sit out the mobile rush. You go be the director of mobile. Let me be the director of social. And it was terrible for 2 years, but it paid off when Twitter came on the scene and others came on the scene, and obviously it's how I got to Twitter. I think you'd agree, like 6 or 7 years ago, programmatic was just an ugly word. But the people that got in 6 or 7 years ago, it's like the sexiest thing now. So they made out well. So just, don't always look at like what's everybody else doing and I got to go chase that. There's a lot of stuff that's just starting to come that's going to be enormous down the road.
Sean, explain a little for those that don't know, especially because we have so many freshmen here, what programmatic is and why they need to know it. We're all listening.
So programmatic, as easy as I can explain it, is if you think about how stocks are bought and sold, right? It's a commodity, and you want to create a marketplace for it. So there are two different ways you can transact, if I can distill this, right? And it's one, you can either create a marketplace and just say, hey, you guys want to buy ESPN SportsCenter inventory? I'm going to put it here. The minimum you can pay is $20. Now go. And you may say, I'll pay 22, and she'll say, 25. And in the system, you guys are bidding on this inventory, and when the market closes, whoever wins, if 25 is the winning bid, and somebody can come in and say, I'll pay 60. But like eBay, if the next highest bid is 26, you'll pay $26.50. And then you'll win that spot in SportsCenter. Because I work for Dish, we don't own a network, right? He owns inventory. He knows what the shows are going to be. We have 13% of the total television viewing audience, right, across both Dish and Sling Television, which is our program, our over-the-top offering. And between those two platforms, what we do is retain 2 minutes per hour on every network. So when it comes to Nielsen ratings, I don't care what networks you're watching. I just care that you're watching TV. And if I have viewership, I'm able to take inventory, a small portion, and create a marketplace where people can bid on that. Separate and apart from that, if GM has a buy and they say, look, we pretty much know what we want to buy, we're going to send you an IO, insertion order, acronym for insertion order, but we're going to transact that programmatically, meaning we'll insert the inventory ourselves. We'll upload our creative, and it'll be very easy. 48 hours later, they can be on air. So those are the two ways that you're transacting. One, it's really a tactic in how you buy, right? A lot of people are thinking about it as a platform. That's not it at all. It's a tactic in how you transact. So for us, in television, you have general market, which are brands like General Motors or Kellogg. You have direct response, which is that immediate call to action product like a ShamWow. They're really buying remnant inventory. And then somewhere in that spectrum, you have programmatic as a way that you can transact for either one of those two categories. Make more sense?
Yeah, So show of hands, how many are hearing about programmatic for the first time? And don't be embarrassed. Okay, so it's a lot of you, right? So what then? And a lot of these folks are obviously in the entry-level classes. They're just getting started. What resources should they be looking at to gain a better understanding of these kind of higher-level concepts? I mean, right now they're doing basic audience analysis, or they're starting to do some basic copywriting, and it's appropriate stuff for the classroom. But if they want to start looking into the future or getting onto that cutting-edge kind of knowledge, what are the resources that they should be calling on?
So the three things that really helped me when I was in school, and they really haven't changed. I took the time and I invested in a New York Times subscription, and I read the media section every day from the time I was a sophomore. The second thing is Ad Age, which is virtually free. I think they might have something where it's not a paywall. You just sign up. You'll be able to get access to articles. And Adweek. There are a few other publications in trades in our industry that are the go-to. And I would also sign up to, and I would write this down if you have a pen, Cynthia Synopsis, which is a daily mailer that goes out. It hits our inboxes at about 3 or 4 a.m. every day. When I first got married, nice aside, my wife would hear my phone go off every morning. She's like, who's texting you at 4 a.m.? Cynthia. Yeah, Cynthia. And then I read her one of the posts, and she said, okay, I get it. So, but what it is, it's this company. Oh, yes. Can you repeat what the two? So Ad Age, Adweek, and then the third would be Cynthia Synopsis. And that's a company that's based in Connecticut that started as a company newsletter that a woman spun into a major publication, online publication, email source that almost everybody who I know in the industry is subscribed to, and uses that as it hits your inbox in the morning, you're on your commute, you're finding out what's going on across the industry.
You can also follow Dave Roeder on Twitter because he posts a lot about the a lot about the
That's
industry.
a great idea. it's at
We
Roeder.
do everything about automation.
No, but on a serious, although that is a great idea, I would, so Twitter, Google, and Facebook all have incredible online training resources. Twitter's is called Flight School. It's easy to find, it's easy to take, it's just free, and it's open. We want advertisers and clients to use it, but it's also open for any small business or anyone. Facebook has something called Blueprint, and I forget what Google's is called, but there's probably 12 of them. But they're open, they're free for you to use, and they'll teach you everything you could possibly want. And I would use them. I would go aggressive there. Facebook also does an insane amount of webinars. Every week they're hosting a different webinar. My team at Twitter, we join them because they're open and public, and we want to understand what Facebook is doing. So I would also look at, just Google Facebook webinars for advertisers for business, and go and check out the Facebook business page and the Twitter business page and the Google business page. And you'll be amazed at how much is there for you to learn.
Yeah, I would say also usually during key times of the industry, so like during Cannes or CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in January, usually the different companies are posting free things around wrap-ups of what was seen and presented during those key industry tent poles for us. And those are really the events where new things are being introduced and sort of predictions are being made with trends. So any opportunity to kind of do some research around that. And then then does the school have like a relationship with the IAB or the ANA where you, okay, so usually they'll also give out really great reports around different topics. And so if there's access to those, we highly recommend to read them. They're great resources for us and our teams. It's where we source a lot of data from. And they're usually covering, topics in areas just like a programmatic and in the, growth of digital video, et cetera.
And one other point is, go to agency websites, go to our company's websites. I can direct you to ours, which is dishmediasales.com. You can download our media kit, and it explains what each of our departments do, and it gives you a little bio on each of our department heads and the leadership positions there.
Any other questions on that? Oh, go.
I was
No,
just going to say,
Yeah.
you should. We do have, actually, Kara and I, we were brought for you guys, they're just little pamphlets around our organization, but they give you a sense of, some of the work and philosophies that we have, but also a description of some of the roles and people to contact if you want to, reach out about any opportunities and so forth. So that might hopefully be a little bit of a resource for you as well.
Yeah, my advice to all of you that are kind of overwhelmed by the number of prospects that are out there is to start doing this kind of research now, because that will help you to rule some things out. It will help you to discover some new career paths, and it will make you a whole lot more conversant in the language of the people that can open doors for you. So nerding out now is going to really, really pay off later.
Is it inappropriate to... So if I want to work for Food Network really bad. I want to work with food. I love food. So if I find these people, is it inappropriate for me to just like LinkedIn message them and ask them to explain like some stuff to me? Or is that encouraged? Or will people think I'm like weird? I don't know.
Can you cook?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I don't want to be a chef, but I want to work with food somehow in there. And I'm an advertising major, so something regarding food, but is it okay for me to just reach out to people like that?
Yes and no. So the first thing to do is find out how you're connected to somebody, right? So to your point, LinkedIn, the great part is you may not know somebody at Food or their parent company Scripps, but you may know somebody there. The other thing is, again, to the point being made is follow the trades. So right now, Scripps Food Network is being purchased by Discovery Networks. So you may not know somebody at Food, but if there's a connection to Discovery, that could be your entree. So find out how you're connected to somebody. By the way, we know people at Scripps at my company, so I'll give you a business card and we can talk about that. But figure out what you want to do there, and then we can structure a pretty, intro level conversation. But the key thing is, and this was perhaps the best piece of advice I got when I was in school, was if you ask somebody for a job, you'll end up getting advice. If you ask somebody for advice, more than likely you'll get a job, okay? So what you want to do, invite somebody out for coffee or do an intro. Hey, I'm a student, love food, I'm very passionate, this is my favorite show, like to find out more. Where can I get more information about your company? And 9 times out of 10, you'll get a response to that.
I have a lot of good friends that work at the Food Network. Yes. Some may not like me on some days because I'm negotiating with them, but I do have a lot of good friends over there. And I would just say you're graduating in December. The merger is going through supposedly in January. So that's something just to stay close to because it's going to be a merging of 2 large companies, and Jake's going through that now, and it's a very unpredictable thing that can happen. So
There are also a lot of exciting food companies, like food digital companies like Tasty and Tastemade.
Tastemade is amazing.
So I'm located in Tampa, and I don't really know what's there necessarily, but all the little videos that come up on Facebook and those kind of things, that's where I think I would like to be. I think.
There's a lot of food companies, yes.
A lot of really good food companies. But I agree, that's perfect advice. Like on LinkedIn, I respond to people that are just reaching out with quick questions, tell me more, give me that advice. The really aggressive, like, hey, I'm looking for a job, can you like it sort of, I'm guessing it falls on deaf ears a little bit. I'm obviously biased because I'm from Twitter, but I've seen Twitter be an amazing way to get attention and to get jobs. Twitter's open, it's public. You figure out who is a senior person at a company, and you just engage with that person, and that you do it in the right way and in an authentic way, and that typically leads to something greater, to some kind of deeper conversation.
Yeah, the two pieces of advice I always got about LinkedIn and approaching somebody that could be useful to you is to offer value and don't be weird. Or if you're going to be weird about the industry that they're in, so that you can kind of geek out together about it. Dave, I like one of the things that you had said, and I think it's applicable to what she was just saying, is that you said you wanted to get to ESPN or something like ESPN. And I think that's great advice too, guys, is to have that flexibility. The things I keep hearing these experts say for us are flexibility, connections, and knowledge. Those are all things you can get at a university. Any other questions? Because I know we're getting down to the bottom of the hour here. Anyone else have a question? Oh, yep.
Hi, my name's Peyton. I'm a freshman, and I just wanted to know, what are some good places to look for internships?
Disney has a great internship program. ABC, any of the networks, most of the networks, I think, major networks and cable networks have usually at least 2 cycles, summer internships, and then something usually in the winter or fall. But all the networks that I know of have great internship programs, and they're different lengths, so whatever you're looking for.
Yeah, same on the agency side. I'd say the way we structure our internship program is that you're able to get exposure. You have singular projects that you work on directly with a team you may be assigned to, but you also have group projects where you're actually going through a delivery of some sort of project presentation. And it's usually directly tied to like a real client business need. But you're also getting exposure to all the different capabilities in the network. So it's quite nice the way that it's structured, because it gives, I think, our interns a flavor of all the different aspects of the marketing ecosystem that come together. That's important, because then it gives you a sense of other areas to potentially explore.
And I'll give you a firsthand experience for me. My internship for 2 years was with the West Virginia Radio Corporation in town, and I was actually their first intern. I was directed to them by the assistant basketball coach, who just asked me, "What are you doing this summer?" Picked up the phone and sent me over there. And I had sat down across from the general manager, who said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "What do you have?" And we kind of formed what this internship would be, how I would get credit. It all happened kind of retroactively, and we jimmied it into the space so that I was able to get college credit for it. But at the end of the day, what I ended up doing was using my cachet as a student here to combine what they were doing. And the biggest pain point for them, and that's it, find out how you can add value. We've talked a bit about that. Dave mentioned that. So they were having a job fair that they were doing at one of the hotels in town and losing money on it. Separate and apart from that, the university was having a job fair over at the Coliseum, and they weren't driving enough traffic because they didn't have any media presence. I'm interning in media. I'm a student at WVU. I went over to Career Services and brokered a deal between my general manager and the head of Career Services, and the way that the job fair is done today is a result of my internship, right? So I didn't have the foresight to do that, but as a student, there are a lot of things that people will give you in terms of resources. So look around. If you don't want to leave Morgantown, there are companies around town that will give you an internship if you can come with an idea of how you can add value. If you want to go back home, look at what media companies are around. And again, and even if it's not a media company, Macy's has a media department. General Motors has a media, there's a client transacting on the other side of what Kara's doing. So think about what companies you're passionate about. It doesn't just have to be a broadcast or a digital media company. You can really find a position for yourself if it's a product that my theme here is passion. If you're excited about it, if it's something you'd read about when you go home, not because it's a homework assignment or it's a job, but I'll go home and read about this because I want to find out more, that's a winning bet every time.
I didn't know this at the time, and you guys may disagree, but I got into my internship thinking that, okay, this will be the thing that just gets me going. Like, I'll just go from step to step to step. Logically, that's what I thought. And the reality was that the internship just taught me how to function in a workplace. It gave me like a view into how corporations work and the kind of culture that I'd want to be a part of one day. And it took me out of I used to bartend during the weekends in the summer, and it took me out of that and into just real life. And that was insanely valuable. I had no idea. I thought I was just on this path. It was at Simon & Schuster Publishing. It was completely irrelevant to anything I've ever done. But looking back, it absolutely set me up. And it was my dad telling me I have to do this, basically.
Now I'm going to tell you have to do it as well. Sean, I want to ask about your that internship experience. So you did that you said you did that 2 years. What year in school were you when you did that?
The first time was a junior, and then the second time was after my senior year. I knew I was going to go up to Turner in August, so I just spent the summer here. I had some classes to finish up, intern with them again. And the only paycheck I got was when I dressed up as their mascot in their big raccoon suit in the middle of summertime.
Nice.
But so I was doing it just for credit, but I loved it. It was a great time.
Guys, there's a ton of opportunity in Morgantown, and the time to get involved in that stuff is when you start to ask yourself, geez, should I be doing something? And actually even earlier than that. There are, the newsletter that I put out every week is very Morgantown focused, but that's by design. There's certainly things we could talk about for you to do at home over the summer. But what I want to get in front of you is something that you could take action on and apply for today, if you have the time to fit it in. And my guess would be, and I'll throw this back to the panelists, that sort of experience is what you do start to use to build that credibility in the industry when you don't have a name yet. You don't have a reputation much, but you can start to show people that, yeah, I did this for West Virginia Radio Corporation, or I did this for the Daily Athenaeum. That stuff does pay off down the road, correct? And Kara, I'll ask you that since you have the HR capacity too.
Yeah, I mean, I internshiped at Iron City Brewing Company in the marketing department.
Cool.
Which was, a great experience, but it also told me I didn't really want to be a marketer per se. I didn't really want to be that strategy person coming up with promotions. I more wanted to be in the math and the meat, and I love to negotiate. So I really then found my niche when my friend basically pulled me over to the buying side. But I think that anything that you do outside of just your regular studies is going to help you go in that career. And I think just on building your reputation is really just how you present yourself with all of the people that eventually you'll talk to wherever you end up. If you end up at a vendor, you're going to talk to a lot of different agencies. If you're at an agency, you're going to talk to clients and vendors. If you're at a client, you're going to talk to a lot of agencies and maybe some vendors. You're not supposed to really, but you do. But I mean, in the end, it's really how you project yourself and how you are your own advocate for yourself.
I want to, if you all have final thoughts to share, I would love to have that. And I would also like to have some time for you to meet with the students individually. So if you could all if you have any last words of advice for the group here, we'll start with Dave.
So with Twitter, we just had a big meeting, a big offsite out in California. We got the whole group together, and we had a speaker come in. She wrote a book about grit. Woman, Angela Duckworth. I don't know if you've talked about her ever, or if you've ever read her book about grit, but you talk about passion, and it was life-changing for me. I didn't ever think of the word grit. I kind of always thought of the word passion, but now I'm just talking about grit because I realize that everything I look for in someone is someone that brings that passion, that energy, but that real grit, that person that's gonna get it done. So I would read that book, find that book. It's Angela Duckworth. It's grit, something about perseverance. And it's not just grit, by the way. It's grit with grace. That's the key. Not just being gritty, but being gritty with good grace.
I think we talked a little bit about internships and where to kind of start and explore. And I think it's safe to say that all of us up here are not done exploring either. We all have responsibilities, even within our own companies, outside of just what we told you our job title indicates. So there's things that we get involved in, that is extremely important, in terms of how we want our company to be perceived amongst all of you and in the marketplace and amongst each other. That I think, probably pay a little bit tribute to what our personal passions are and where we also choose to get involved beyond just our day-to-day. So just know that's probably something that will continue, and that's what also allows us to kind of get involved beyond, our day-to-day functions, and allows us to continue to be excited as well. And then, the other thing I would say is just, always be mindful of the fact that, I love sitting up here right now and being able to give mentorship and advice, and I thoroughly enjoy that in my company and amongst my teams. And I always remind myself that you're always going to be talking to people, and you want people to sort of listen to you and be inspired by what you're saying. So even amongst yourselves within the school, remember that the people that as you're talking with each other and sitting in classes, it's the same thing. You're going to be feeding off of each other. So I think that's an important thing to always be mindful of and make sure that you're really kind of trying to inspire others, because that's where a lot of good creativity comes from.
Piggybacking off of that, 3 of us here were classmates. So you can look around the room. Anybody in this room could be your client or your vendor in the future, right? So I would say this is a craft, and I do it because I enjoy it. I didn't happen into this field. I really studied advertising. I would read about it. I'd read about the industry. I'd read about my clients and their business because I take it very seriously. But I have fun and I enjoy it. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you get an internship. You can't really at this stage make a bad decision. It's really about the level of activity that you have. Because when I interview people, the first thing I'm going to say is, what did you do to get here? Right? You're in the room now, but what got you here? And more often than not, if you're sitting at my desk, it's because you've had a great internship, or you've done a good job of networking, you impress somebody along the way to get to my desk. So I would say be active, take an active role. Eric's a great resource, utilize your resources, but be very active in pursuing this because it's not something that just happens for you.
Yeah, and I would say kind of keep a wider focus, if you will. We talked a lot about flexibility, and having a goal is great, but if you've got your focus or your vision on kind of one thing, every once in a while, pick your head up and look around and see what else is out there, because a lot of times you won't see something that could be really interesting to you if you're completely focused on one thing. And have fun. This is the greatest time of your life, so enjoy it.
I think just going on what everybody else said, I would say network for sure. Keep your eyes and ears open, and don't be afraid to reach out to people. I would say watch social media, because it can be your friend and it can be your enemy. And I think when you first get a job, take a notebook to your meetings and take notes, because you're going to be learning from that day forward. And it frustrates me so much when I see people come in, and especially like newbies, and they walk in and they're like, no notebook, they're barely listening, their phone is sitting next to them with text coming in, and it's just really distracting. But also, you're going to learn so much that first year, and then you're going to learn. I mean, I'm 18 years in, I'm still learning. So that's my advice.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, get a mentor. You mentioned mentorship, and you love to mentor. I have a mentor within my company who I sit with once a month. I fly out to Denver, we'll grab some time in his office, and I'm just going over, these are my goals, this is what I've seen you do, can you give me some advice? I update my resume quarterly. I'll give him a copy of my resume, and I'll say, how does this look? One of the things that I don't like is when I get somebody's resume and it looks like they haven't had anybody else review it. So you, again, get a mentor, rely on your peers, kind of build a network of people around you who can give you advice, and they can be a good barrier between you going out on the road and making a mistake and you making sure that you're fine-tuning who you are and how you present yourself.
The next big announcement you'll get from me will be about our professional mentorship program coming up on Monday. I'll put the applications up for that. Sean has been involved in that program for many years, definitely since before I got here. And so that's the next thing I want you all to be kind of tuning in for. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate this. These are really successful people, but they're really nice people. And I would encourage you to ask them any questions you were afraid to ask in front of the entire forum. And also, take note of the fact that they all got to the #1 media market in the country, but through some very different paths. So that there's no one clear path, that if you see a classmate that's doing one thing and you're doing something a little different does not mean you're on the wrong road. They all got there. And they all started here. That's the last thing I want to leave you with, is don't feel that you're at a disadvantage being at this university or in this major or this college. These folks started exactly where you are and have some good advice on how to get to the finish line, or not the finish line even, to get to where they are and to keep learning and keep growing. So thank you again, guys, for being here. Thank you all for being with us as well, and take some time and meet these folks. And there's refreshments out in the lobby area. Thanks again.
Thank you. They haven't lit the place on fire over there yet, so things must be going well.
It's funny. Yeah. Always so good.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, good. I really appreciate it.
Hey, how are you? Yeah. So advertising sales.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. So actually, are you a freshman? Sophomore. Okay. So if you go to the college's website, there are instructions on how to make so if you fail at all, my email is eric.meyer@wcm. It's a public kid. If that doesn't work, just come in and visit my office. I'm 104. Yes. Yep. So it's on the. I don't know where they may have done the advising. It's in. Who is your advisor? Let me ask you that. But okay, so I'm down the hall from the teacher. It's on the same floor. He's in 108. I'm in 108. If you drop in, my door's open, and don't have an appointment, I would love to talk to you then, or I could at the very least tell you how it is. Yeah, absolutely. How's it going? Good. How was your summer? Oh yeah? How so?
Nice to meet you.